Paid newsletters and sponsorships actually won't get your creator business newsletter to 100K or more annually. In fact, only 2% of the 27,000 paid Substack newsletters last year made more than 100K annually. And that's because you kind of need a really big audience in order for the numbers to work. Here's the cool part though. Since 2020, I've helped several online creator businesses with smaller audiences, less than 7,000 people on their newsletter, scale from a few sales to over 100K annually. And we didn't use paid sponsors, and we didn't use a paid newsletter either. And in this deep dive video, I'm gonna reveal if you were my client and you had kind of a small audience, what we would do together to scale your newsletter from a few sales to over 100K annually consistently. In this video, I've condensed 5 years of embarrassments, mistakes, some wins along the way, helping online education businesses sell over $15 million in sales with their newsletters. And it's worked with $500 products like with this creator here, and it's also worked with $25,000 products like this creator here. This is a really meaty video, and I already know not everyone's gonna get through this, but here's my promise if you do get through it. If your business is a little bit reliant on creating more content and more video views, and maybe sometimes you get a little anxious when you see the YouTube Creator Studio like this, like I personally might. This is going to be the complete guide to saying F you to the algorithm or renting out your audience to brands who just pay you pennies for it, and ultimately write your own paychecks with your email newsletter. So let's kick off with the first principle that if you don't follow, will pretty much guarantee you will not hit 100K with your creator business newsletter. Try not to sell to more than one person. And I'll give you an example. So I was running a promotion for a client they called Clinical Marketer. They help physical therapy businesses with their business. And the first promo worked super well. We were talking about 4th of July and how it was kind of like anti-freedom day for the type of practice owner who's by themselves, who's doing everything, spinning all these plates. And like they were working really hard during the 4th of July. So it resonated the anti-freedom day. And the second time we did a promo, I made the mistake of saying, hey, if you're a solo practice owner who's like doing everything yourself, or you're an experienced practice owner who just wants to simplify things back the way it was when you first started and make margins a lot fatter, basically. You would think that it just like resonates with everyone, but sales did not follow. And the reason why is because we just didn't talk to one person. And on reflection, here's another reason why. So like we did lead magnets, we did YouTube videos. A lot of the content was geared toward that first person, the person who was like the solo practice owner. So now I'm going to give you basically the cheat code to resonate with that one person. So what I found after pooping the bed many times with newsletter promotions and doing quite well with others, multiple six figures, high 5 figures, every single time I talk about a problem and it can be very hard to visualize for the person. Man, those campaigns just don't do as well. Especially when I don't talk to one person or I say, do you have this problem or this problem? And they're two totally different people, then of course that campaign flops. But the best way I've found to get specific with one person is to paint mind movies. So yeah, like a B+ marketer could go to Grok and figure out, hey, a solo practice owner, they need more consistent patience. But how would I demonstrate in a movie? And the reason why I've got this picture here is because this is how I demonstrate someone is like time poor or like glued to the computer, for instance. You can see here he's got like 11 hours and 22 minutes on his screen time, is slumped over. And the subject line, for instance, might be cold emailing gyms, eating into kids soccer. So instead of saying like need more consistent patience, I'm pointing at like a specific mind movie that is going on, or it's like 11 hours screen time eating into kids soccer, for example. The reason why I like doing mind movies is, yeah, it's more specific to that one person, but once you see the mind movies and you start thinking about it, you're like, oh, why would that other person ever buy this? Because it never actually happens in their life. Just another high level example here, like I wish things were simpler, like when I was smaller. The symptom of that might be they're so busy that there's 9 missed calls by lunchtime. And I've just literally painted a picture here. There's a missed call from Julie, the patient, from a new lead, and the front desk has annoyingly asked, can I take the day off? So if you want your newsletter promos to slap, like take the problem a step further and think about what is the symptom of the problem and can I actually paint a picture like we've done in these two examples here. So this big giant cluster of arrows and pointing stuff is how I plan to monetize someone's email list before I start working with them. I'm going to walk you through exactly how I would do this for a client. I would work backwards from their offer to figure out what we need to talk about in their newsletter, what we need to build, all that stuff. And the first step, it's pretty straightforward. It's what is my offer? Like, what are you selling? And then I'm going to be asking, how will I sell it? Because before we even get to this part here, we got so many things to consider. Like, are we selling in a school group? Is it going to be a sales page? Is it a discovery call page? Then we probably need to figure out, what do we need to build? And I think this map would be way too big if I had a little tangents on each of these things. But typically, if I was doing a sales page, okay, I'd be looking at lead magnets, landing pages, a VSL. I want to gather the proof. I want to get some objection busting content out. Definitely want a welcome sequence, a pre-call sequence, and a post-purchase sequence. Man, may as well just include everything on this list here. So this should get you aware, if you're thinking of selling something ahead of time, probably be a good idea to list out all the things you have to build. So you build all these assets, which is great, but now the hard part is earning people's trust. What I found is if you're looking for the best conversions, you're going to want to knock on these 5 different things. Thanks to Travis Sager, if you're watching this, for this lovely diagram of this kid doing stepping stones. I think it's a great analogy. I found that the best way to get a prospect from not really trusting you to handing their money, kind of thinking it as stepping stones in your newsletter you got to do, I want to be thinking about problem, personality, philosophy, plan, and price. And I'll quickly explain what these are. So problem, you obviously got to understand their problems inside out. And if you just watch that last part, understanding the symptoms and painting that mind movie. Personality, now this is my favorite part because everyone's going on ChatGPT, they're going for the content, they're going for logic, but people buy from people and you kind of don't remember stuff from non-fiction books as well as fiction books, or at least I do. So things like your flaws, what do you like? What do you like to do on weekends? What do you absolutely hate? What do you have a stand for socially? Like, these are some good ideas to include in your personality. Philosophy, like I like to always include the philosophy on price. What are my philosophies on business, relationships? Like, these are common topics. This next one here, plan, that's like rarely spoken about. What are they currently doing right now that they, hey, aren't getting great results with? It's causing a lot of frustration. And then what is the new plan that you are thinking about ahead of time and presenting to them? What is a new opportunity in this case? And for this last part, price, it's not just like the actual monetary price. It's also, what is the price of staying the same? If you can connect all these 5, I think you're going to have a much easier time of earning people's trust, especially if you plan out ahead of time how you're going to include all these in your newsletter. So now you've got like these general 5 themes. What are we going to talk about in the emails? Well, we talked about symptoms in the last part. I want to be listing out all their heaven symptoms and all their hell symptoms. So their perfect day, how is their status going to change? What are they proud of? What's the outcome that gets them excited? But I want to be poking out what's their pain points, basically. So what's broken with what they're using? Who or what is keeping them stuck? People, things they hate. Annoying to-do lists they got to do every single day. And when I can lead with, say, a health symptom, finish off with like, if you click this link, it will help you achieve one of these things here in the heaven symptoms. And I've intertwined some of these parts here, and we go send them to where it's like a lead magnet or a landing page, and it goes to a sales page. I'm going to have a lot more confidence that this is going to be converting at a much higher level than if we just sent, regular generic ChatGPT content emails. Now, the final part, how do we get to these health symptoms? How do we figure this out? Well, we got to do research. This is actually my favorite part, and I think it converts the best, is talking to past customers, because they've gone through the program, they've gotten results, they'll tell you exactly what they did and didn't like. I just found that with sources like YouTube comments, Reddit, Quora, Amazon reviews, can't really get to the bottom of the truth, and sometimes people make stuff up. And some other key hacks is competitors' ads or landing pages or sales pages or whatever. They spent lots of money testing those. You can get a pretty good idea of the pain points. And then just questions asked, which is basically from this part here. So do you see how it makes more sense to start from what am I selling and what is the offer versus what is the research? You kind of get a bit stuck. But if we start from this top, figure out what we're going to build, figuring out how we're going to build trust, then figuring out the symptoms, both heaven and hell, what they really want, what they don't want, then it makes a lot more sense that research is the last step. Now, if you don't have this part down pat, then making sales from your newsletter is going to be incredibly hard. What I'm talking about here is making sure you don't land in the spam or the email promotions. So I'm going to use a demo of my email promo calculator. If you want to go grab it, by the way, the link is going to be down in the description below. So we're going to assume that there's 5,000 people on this email list. And what I found, generally speaking, for every 10% you get an open rate, you get about 1% click through. So 10% open rate, 1% click through, 20% open rate, 2% click through. Kind of makes sense. It's not hard and fast, but like generally speaking, that seems to be the case. Now, sales page conversion, when they land on this sales page, I'm going to be assuming it's converting at 4%, which is like pretty good. And then we're going to put down the offer here. Let's do $197. Now, 10% open rate. This is going to be something probably stuck in spam or the promotions tab. And as you can see, if we send out this email to their list, someone's getting 2 sales. They're going to think, oh, this is pretty good, right? But here's what happens when we try and fix the open rates. So let's just assume we get it out of the promotions tab and some people start to see it more. We're probably going to double the click-through rate. We're doubling the revenue. That's pretty cool, hey? Apart from all the teching stuff, how do you raise it from, say, 20% to 30%? In this hypothetical, in this deliverability perspective, it is tripling in sales. And all we've done is just focusing on making sure it's landing in the primary tab. So the question is, how do you make sure your newsletter lands in the primary tab and people open and click through it? Because you could have really good open rates. Let's just say it is 50%, which means you could be getting a lot of eyeballs, but if the click-through rate, meaning people don't trust you or don't feel like they need to click on the link, then you're getting far less sales than the person who's getting a 30% open rate, but their click-through was a lot more. So the question is, how do you get more clicks? And not just clicks, but people who actually want to buy from you. And again, if you want this calculator, yeah. Now, tactically speaking, there are 2 ways to improve the quality of the clicks and get more clicks. But if you don't do these 2 steps, then you're going to drive down the quality of clicks and the volume of your clicks. And it's pretty straightforward. The first is writing better emails. The second step is, how do I make sure my emails actually land in the primary tab? And we're going to walk through both of those. So John had a coaching program which showed people how to start their own recruiting business. And he'd already done that himself, right? So I'm sure if you're a YouTube creator or an educator, you've already solved the problem that your ideal clients are wanting to solve themselves. And I'll explain how this all ties together. In John's newsletter, he was getting about 10% open rates, and the connection kind of wasn't really there in the emails. It was very cut and dry. Here's the info. Maybe having this problem, click the link to solve that problem. But here's what we did to drive his opens from 10% to 24%, and we pulled out over 140K in 60 days. Yeah, obviously we had to write better emails. And the way I like to write a better email is in 3 parts. First part, you just need to have an entertaining story. Second is you need to have a lesson from that story that talks about maybe a problem or a frustration or a misbelief or something that your ideal clients are going through right now that they can relate with. And the third part is that then it transitions pretty naturally into your offer, what you have to say. So to move away from the very how-to encyclopedia style newsletters, like I see a lot, what we did with John was that I asked him, hey man, so what kind of problems did you have when you were trying to jump from in the agency to working your own thing? And he told me, man, it took me so long to pull the trigger before I actually did it. I'm like, is this something people are feeling? Is this something your clients are feeling? He's like, definitely. And to find all the entertaining parts, I asked him, hey, what's going on in life right now? And he's like, I'm actually doing some magic coaching. Magic coaching? And he's like, yeah, when I used to be a kid, I went past this magic shop. My mum never actually let me go because, we're kind of new to the country. Money was kind of tight. I never actually got there, but I'm actually attending that same magic shop and getting coaching from that same owner who used to own that shop. That'd be a good story, wouldn't it? About it's not too late to chase your dreams and there's still hope and it's never too late. Now, if you're a YouTube creator or an educator, you've probably solved the problems of your audience, right? You've already done the thing that they're trying to do. Maybe you've gone through the embarrassments, the failures, the rejections, all the mistakes. And just like John, who really had that hesitation to jump from his agency life to doing his own thing, you've probably got a list of all these hangups as well, very similar to John, that your ideal clients are going through right now. So to write a better email, what I suggest is think about all these entertaining stories that are going on in your life right now. How can it relate with your ideal audience? And then how do you then segue that into a lesson that's relevant with, say, like a common belief, a mistake, or a habit that your ideal clients are doing right now that they shouldn't be doing? The third part of that email then is pretty simple. So to get away from that pain, clicking this link resolves that pain. So for John, in that transition, escaping the hell, instead of saying book a call, it might be build a profitable recruiting business on the side without quitting your day job. So the second way to improve the quality of your clicks comes down to your deliverability. Understanding your deliverability is kind of like understanding an Uber rating. I don't know if you can see that there, but I'm a 4.87. And I've been a pretty good passenger. Like, I haven't vomited in cars. I haven't been abusive to people. I typically like to chat with the driver. And I haven't had any issues getting a ride. Even 4 a.m., 3 a.m., no issues. I always get a ride. And that's because every time I complete a ride, I send a positive signal to Uber. And Uber sends a signal to all the other drivers saying, hey, you can trust Jules. pick him up. He won't do something bad. Now, how this relates to email and your newsletter and getting more subscribers and growing your business is if you send out an email and nobody clicks, or people rarely open, or they don't forward it, or it's landing in the junk folder, that is the equivalent of like vomiting in the car, being abusive to the driver, being very late to your pickup all the time. You're just sending very negative signals to Google, Yahoo, and everything else. And the worst part is, if you keep letting this happen, then your rating gets worse and worse, and it's harder and harder to get into the primary inbox. But deliverability is it's a bit of a complex thing, and man, there's still so many things to learn and keep in touch with. But there are 3 things I would probably recommend to do right now to improve your deliverability, or think of it as like your Uber rating. You go to this website called Never Bounce, and as the title suggests, we're trying to reduce the number of emails bouncing that you send out, because every time an email bounces, it kind of says, I don't really trust this person who's sending out these emails. What Never Bounce does, basically gives all your email contacts and newsletter a bit of a cleanup, says who's verified, who's legit. People change email addresses, people gave you a fake spam one, best to get rid of those and only send to the verified people. And this is the next step we do. If you do that first part with Never Bounce and you already start to see improvements with your results, great. But if you haven't, I would keep doing this. So if you're getting less than like 15% open rates, what I would do is artificially improve your engagement rating with Google. So do you remember before how all the positive signals are more opens, more clicks, more forwards, more replies? Well, if I sent out an email to 1,000 people versus 100 people, it's probably going to improve all those engagement ratings, right? But we can take a step further. Most email softwares, you can actually set the lists for people who've opened in the last 5 days, 7 days. So these are people who are religiously opening your emails, clicking on it, everything else. So if I curate that list, let's just say people have opened the last 10 days and I've got 100, but normally I have 1,000 people on my list. There's a pretty good chance I'm going to get like a 60 to 80% open rate on those emails. And if I normally get say like 1 or 2% from 1,000, you're probably going to get between 3 to 7% click through if these are your most engaged people. And then what I would do is I'd send for day 1, just 100 people. Then day 2, I would increase that maybe to 120 people. Then day 3, I might increase that to 140 people. Each day, you're sending more positive signals to Google, but I'm also slowly increasing it so that I can ramp it up back to my normal sending levels. And if you're still having issues, I'd move on to this 3rd step. So you're going to put your domain into something called MX Toolbox. And this is going to tell you if you're on a blacklist or anything else like that. And some blacklists allow you to remove yourself, which is pretty handy. And other times, it's really annoying. This happened to me before with past clients. You might be what's in a called a shared IP. And everyone in that IP, which is kind of like a collective group who borrow the same Uber rating. Unfortunately, those people with the bad Uber ratings for email bring everyone else down, and you're kind of stuck in that. So the best way I found is just to do all the steps that I showed you, then go talk to your email provider and say, hey, look, I've done everything here. Please change my server to something that's not problematic. And if you're still having issues, my gosh, I would go to this website here. It's called Easy DMARC, and just check if you've got the right records in place. So I'll be checking for SPF, for DMARC, and for DKIM. I don't make this video too long on deliverability, but there are instructions on that website to help you install those records.
Now, the 3rd step that I like to follow is to create not just lead magnets, but lead magnets that turn into sales and into clients. If you want the fast way to figure out how to actually get more leads and sales from your lead magnets, you have an audience, this is what I would do. So this is what I did with the past client. His name was Troy. And what we did was that before we took the lead magnet to cold traffic with his YouTube videos or his content or on Facebook, whatever, we went to his newsletter audience first to validate the lead magnet idea. So the first question I wrote was, hey, would you be interested in a guide on hiring your first person? And not many people said yes to that. Then I went back to the sales team and I asked, hey guys, what do people actually really want? And they're like, oh, it's recurring revenue. That's what they're all after. I'm like, great, let's put this letter. Write an email. I'm like, hey, would you be interested in put a guide together on recurring revenue? And we're just flooded with responses. And sure enough, if something works and you validate it works, it's going to work somewhere else you put it. So where else can we put this? Oh, we've got a Facebook group with 10,000 people. let's put this exact same email with, let's change a bit of the words, and then let's see what happens. And boom, we got like 450 people wanting the exact same lead magnet. But that's just the validation process. How do you actually make a lead magnet that makes sales?
So the key thing I found is that it's just got to answer this like one burning question. The burning question for these guys was, how do I add recurring revenue? This is a basic formula that I use for this client. The structure is a specific number and a burning question. It's timely, and there's some urgency with a benefit. So before I give them the info and just get straight into the goods, it's a pretty good idea I found. It's from a book called Persuasion, that you get people ready to consume the information they're about to read. And I do this by addressing objections or like bringing up beliefs that they might think about recurring revenue. Then the magnet is pretty straightforward. I got 3 pieces of pillar content that answers the burning question. How do I add recurring revenue? So I've got 3 different types of how you would add recurring revenue. Then I basically just explain the what, some benefits, I kill some objections, and I use some proof to back it up. Then down the very bottom, I've got like a really soft CTA. If you want some guidance, like here's a link, and it seems to work pretty good, especially if it's a lead magnet. So this next principle is what lets you stay really small as a creator, be really close to your tribe, make lots of money, and not need to go big and bloated like some newsletters are just to make an income. And the answer is using your stories so that you can be unique. So when I was made redundant in 2020 as a gym instructor, I fell into freelance copywriting, and I was pretty naive. So I bought all the guru sequences, the 7-step storytelling sequence, and they're saying how many sales they got. But what I didn't realize at the time was it didn't matter what the sequence was. If I went to like a junk email list with no relationship, then the sequence didn't matter, right? It was the connection with the list. Now, I hate to use a cliche, but there is no magic sequence to someone's heart in a relationship, right? It's all about connection. And connection is one of the best ways to convert. So if you can understand like their daily frustrations, what they're going through, yes, that's really important. But getting clear on yourself and what are your values? What's your philosophy? What do you hate about the industry? This is your personality. And using your own personality is what's going to set you apart from everyone else and make you unique. If I'm managing someone's newsletter, like I want to get to know that person really well. So with Troy, we sat on his big couch, recorded a few hours, and I got all these different questions here. The reason why I asked him all these questions is because I want to pull out all this content from him in the process. From one interview, we pulled out probably about 60 different pieces of content. Now I'm going to leave a link description down below for those questions, but if you would have been my client, I'd be like, hey, how's it going? And I'll take you into my world on my computer here, and I'm going to show you exactly like how to pull these questions out of you so that 1, you're not salesy when you're trying to be selling, differentiate yourself from everyone else, and 3, this is how you make selling fun. I'm going to walk you through that process on my computer. So you've gone through the story interview and you want to go splice it up into a million different ways to say the same thing, like I mentioned before. This is probably the best way to do it. So right here, I've got a grid and it's got principle, lesson I want to teach, story I want to tell, characteristic I want to share. And the reason why I do this is because I can repurpose a story many different ways. And sometimes I've just found before in the past with clients, you can say the same story 90 days or 100 days later and people won't remember. But I would be an idiot if I just used the same story in the same sort of email. I would want to change things up a bit, right? The monetization plan, we worked out what's our personality, what's our philosophy. So hopefully we're going to have a good idea of what to include here. But for example here, let's just say that having a good team is like having 2 to 3 clones of yourself acting on your behalf. This is a story I used for past client Troy. From those questions I provided, you might want to use the same principle multiple times, but you might want to use a different story you want to share in the process. So for example, client booked a time last minute to chat, had to pick up the kids from school, and this was a pain in the ass. Now in the story, instead of saying I put family first over business, I kind of showed people that I did that in the process. And that's the characteristics I want to share. The lesson I want to teach is you can't achieve your agency goals without a team, which is kind of boring. And if I just said, hey guys, you can't achieve your agency goals without a team, no one would really listen. So this is a lesson I want to teach. I probably wouldn't want to lead with that. But as you can see, I can mix and match different stories and different lessons I want to teach. And this is how I come up with endless ideas, but I'm still getting my point across. I'm still pointing on those 5 Ps, on those stepping stones. The key takeaway here is that you go through those interview questions to easily get your transcript from the interview, give this table to ChatGPT, and then basically ask it to match it according to what you want to do. And there's your content plan. And you've sliced it up a million different ways. This is a process that I've used to write months and months and months for clients without running out of ideas, always coming up with something fresh, and most importantly, what actually leads to a sale. Okay, so this took me about 4 years to realize that I've probably lost so many sales in the process, but You can recover so many more sales by starting sales conversations by asking for replies. You've probably seen this graph before. It's a big pyramid. It's like only a few percent, like 3% are ready to buy right now. And there's a huge chunk who are like, yeah, I got to think about it. Now, the mistake I made was assuming that everyone is at this 99-yard line. Now, if you're an Australian in AFL, that means they're at the top of the goal square, but essentially not everyone's ready to go. I made this mistake by sending emails, like 5,000 people on a list, only 3 people are actually clicking on a link to book a call. What's going on? It turns out people have a lot of insecurities when it comes to getting on a call or purchasing something, especially if it's high ticket. But having a low stakes, it's anonymous when you just reply to email. It's like messaging in your Instagram DMs. It's pretty low stakes. Sometimes whether you're selling a course or selling a call, what I realized was that I was basically that guy on the first day trying to go ask for Netflix and chill when I needed to ask for a virtual coffee date first. So to start a virtual coffee date, instead of having a link, I just asked, would you like to hear Erin's voice note where she explained how she got this result? We had 64 people reply, made a bunch of sales. I realized, oh crap, there's a better way than just pushing people to a link. You start conversation. Here's a bonus tip as well. I'm a chronic overthinker, especially when it comes to what I say in the DMs now. It's really simple, right? You're just trying to start a conversation. And the first thing you want to start to get people down like a grease slide, so to speak, is just to give them an easy yes or no question. In this example, we said, hey, are you a solo agency owner or do you have a team? Then they reply. And then the best question I love using is, what prompted you to reach out? What prompted you to get this thing, to say the thing back to them? So they might say, yeah, I'm looking to get more clients. I'm like, you're looking to get more clients, question mark? And using this really simple reply, we got way more people saying yes to a virtual coffee date rather than you just going for the Netflix and chill straight away. Take a look at this reply that I used during a promotion at the start. We asked a question here, we got over 373 replies. And we started talking to them. It was like our own little chat box on the sales page. We figured out what people want and we were able to talk about it in the emails coming up in that promotion, where we made like a lot of sales in the process. You might be asking, Jules, where do I actually put these reply-based emails? What's the best strategy? I'm going to give you 3 really good places that I always use with my clients. First is in the welcome email. Right after you give a lead magnet, you should be asking for a reply. And I'll show you an example how it works for my magnet. In my magnet, it is how to make more from your YouTube traffic without making more videos. I give people a really simple hand raiser email, like a reply email, get them to raise their hand. And at the bottom of the welcome email, I'm like, hey, would you like 3 more hand raiser emails? Second best spot you can put it is just to make a very clear offer to your past customers who've maybe got one thing, but they haven't bought your more expensive thing. The third part is, let's say you got like a daily newsletter and you want to create a new magnet and say, hey, I'm thinking of putting together a guide, or I'm thinking of putting together a group, or whatever that key thing is, and you just ask for the reply. Once you've done a few of these reply campaigns and you really understand who's in your list, the next thing I would do to monetize is to make a promotion and make it really fun in the process. The big mistake I made with this and what I see out there is that, okay, let's run a promotion. Let's run like a discount. Let's do this huge discount. It's really good, obviously, for bringing sales, but I would hate it if people only bought because I offered a discount every time. It devalues my thing. If I really wanted to sell something for 20,000 or 30,000, and I've trained my list to only buy when there's a promotion, it's going to be a hard time, don't you think, to sell that 20K thing? If you don't run discounts, then what's a better way of running a promotion? Let me show you how I helped this creator make over $9,000 with just a $147 bundle. So it was 2024, February 29 was fast approaching. And the way they normally ran their promos was send out some like promotional emails, there's a discount, 3-4 days it's open, and then like wrapped up. Then I had the bright idea, I'm like, instead of just discount, why don't we just give them more and charge more? As a bundle, you're going to get a deal. So instead of being at $400, instead of getting each one individually, it's going to be $147. Because it was a leap year, we wanted to make things fun. If you can't have fun, then the promo won't really work because people just feel like it's pitch. So we said, leap ahead with your Qigong practice and accelerate your progress with these 3 courses. And naturally, because it's a leap year, it's every 4 years, right? There's built-in urgency. Yeah, we're not going to run this every 4 years. Obviously, jump in. Even though that promo did okay for about $9,000, $147 product ain't going to make a lot of money. So you probably need to bump up the price a bit, and that's exactly what we did. So if you go check out this calculator I've got below, you can put in your offer, the close rate, the sales page conversion. It's going to tell you your estimated revenue. So I was like, did this exact same thing. I'm like, hey, Tev, check this out. Like, we can't make much money if we're just selling $147. What can we sell for $500? Now, making it fun and having a theme and creating more of a bundle, that promo with $500 did over $32,000. So to write your own fun promos, I really suggest you check out this video here. It just explains the whole process, how I would do it. But if I was brainstorming what would be a fun promo, so the first category is business, right? I'm about to reach 50,000 YouTube subscribers. We just hit our 100th customer. And I'll give you some examples of how you tie this together. Just stick with me. Second category is personal. Like, I just turned 30, my dog's birthday. I'm going away to travel. Or if you're like the Beatles, allegedly, they were like, hey, we need a new swimming pool. We need a new house extension. Let's write a new song. And the third category is calendar events that you probably are aware of, like all the big ones, like Christmas, Easter, obviously like non-Christian ones too, Black Friday, end of the year, new quarter, new season. I'll give you some examples. So let's just say we're celebrating 50 Trustpilot reviews, and to celebrate that, we're going to give you even more support for another 50 days. On my 30th birthday, I'm like, hey, I'm giving away 30 one-on-one unstuck sessions that are normally like $250 for $99. And in this session, we're going to help you get unstuck with your biggest problem. We're going to get you on the path to your goal much faster. See what I'm doing there? Another one to do, hey, it's in the financial year. This promo is going to be so good. By the time you finish implementing it, by the next year, you'll be in another higher tax bracket. And so when you're writing your promo, you just want to be sticking, like every single email is sticking to this fun theme. So you're reminding them why you're doing this. Now, promo themes are fun, but the next topic here is hardly touched by any sort of newsletter video I've seen on YouTube. And that is all about saving sales with automations. For example, if you're selling more than $500, let's say like a suit store, you go into a suit store. I went recently to do that for my friends. It had a black tie event. Like I went in there. Do you think it's like a self-checkout sort of place where you just try on stuff? Like you could, but generally there's some service, like they're going to measure me up. What kind of event are you going to? Have you worn something like this before? What's your partner wearing? You're going to ask all these questions, and they're soliciting a sale, but they're being helpful in the process. And it's kind of the same thing with automations when you think about it. If someone has clicked on a link to your sales page 6 times in 2 days, it's a good chance they need some help, right? They need some questions answered. So a good idea might be to write, hey, if this person lands on sales page 6 times, send email being like, got questions about your offer? And I don't know how this is salesy, but like you would put in a document like, hey, like I know a lot of people have questions and stuff about your offer. I put together like an FAQ document with all the FAQs. Here it is, Google Doc. If you run an evergreen newsletter, use maybe once or twice a week, how do you implement or think about automations to save money? The best way I like to think about it is like, where does the communication drop off where someone might feel doubt or feel like this isn't for me? And the best way to do this is I have a mind map. At the top, I'm going to have, this is my offer. What's the next step before they jump on my offer? It could be like they land on my sales page or they land on my book a call page. What's the next step before that? Oh, they might get some welcome emails from me. Okay, what's the step before that? It's the lead magnet. Okay, what's the step before that? And what I'm trying to find is that where are these points of disconnect? Did they get a lead magnet, but then they weren't really shown how to use it? Or did they land on your sales page or your call page and then there was no follow-up process? Or did they actually book a call and there's no emails, like you're just expecting them to show up? Or like maybe they got on the call, for example, and you thought, oh, they're not a good fit. Like, what about those next 90 days after? Like maybe the timing was just off and you need to keep communicating with them differently. That's when automations come fun. It doesn't have to be super techy. You're just thinking about like, how do I be that clerk who was measuring me up, asking all these questions in order to make the sale like a lot easier for me to say yes. Now we're talking automations. The next thing you might be thinking about is split testing stuff. And split tests, the way I found is that if you just do tiny little incremental changes, you're going to get tiny little incremental wins. But I remember when I was reading Russell Brunson's 101 split test ideas, and he documented all his different split test ideas and other marketers he talked to. His discovery was that when I do a big dramatic change, I will be expecting a big dramatic result or a big dramatic fail. And I remember there was one point where I was helping a client that we'd fully optimized everything, like the sales page, the emails, and they're like, man, like Jules, we're still getting like pushback on price on the calls. Like, can you do some email magic here? So I'm like, man, how do I do like a big drastic change than like anything else? And this is a concept I learned from Dean Jackson. It's called a super signature. This is one big test example that's drastically different than just regularly sending out content emails. I've even seen like top creators like Justin Welsh use this box really strategically to just put their offers in there without being really salesy. Now, I just tested this to see what would happen if we put this little like box down the bottom. We made a bunch more calls, and some of the emails we weren't even pitchy. So this is a big dramatic test that I think you can really benefit from. So first, you're going to take your normal sending list and cut it in half. And then one half is going to get the super signature and the other half is not going to get it. Now, I wouldn't do split tests because if you do that, then it's just going to get muddled between who has it and who doesn't. So you may as well just cut the list in two. Then you're going to draw like a line from the left all the way to the right. The left is going to be like, where do you think they are right now in terms of their life, their problems, what's going on in their day? And on the right here is becoming a customer with you. And you're going to have different problems as like a question that comes up along their journey. So for example, with my client, clinical marketer, their question was at the very beginning, I can't get past those like goddamn insurance questions on my first call before I even get a patient. So then I turned that I can't get patients into the question, can't get past, do you take my insurance objections? And then the following link was roleplay the first crucial patient call with the first call patient prehab GPT. It was a lead magnet. That lead magnet then went to a page with explainer guide down the bottom, following my lead magnet system, which I showed you in this video, as a soft CTA down the bottom. Okay, so you think you're fully optimized, but you are definitely not. Because if you aren't recycling stuff, things that have worked before in the past, every 120 days, you're just basically doing more work. And this is a very key principle, and that is to recycle winners. And think about this, like not recycling emails at work, newsletters at work is kind of like not going onto YouTube and doing some like thumbnail research and then not taking ideas of what's already worked before. I had this misconception that like, oh, if I give these people an email 120 days later, the same one, word for word, aren't they just going to unsubscribe? And what I realized was that like people have lives. You're one of thousands of emails they're going to see in between the 120 days. They're probably going to forget. May as well just use that email, right? And this is a key reason why you got to be recycling winners, because it is so time efficient. And I kind of learned this, my clients taught me this lesson the other way around. So I remember when I was first writing promotions for people, it was like year 1 or year 2 of freelancing, I would charge $5,000 for an email promotion. It did really, really well. Then what happened was that the client was like, hey, I'm good, don't need it from you. And I'm like, oh, okay. The next year, I see him running the exact same promotion, exact same sales letter, same emails. And my clients, they told me valuable lessons. Like they pay money in order to acquire like assets. And that includes like digital assets, because if it's worked once, how many more times can we get usage out of this? Because like, why would I bother writing this again? And if you remember my step from the lead magnet, like we basically did the same thing. Like we repurposed that lead magnet into a Facebook group, and really smart business owners realize that, hey, like if something's worked, let's just recycle it because it's going to work somewhere else. This next part is quite tactical, especially if you've got a newsletter. So go back through your data, see which emails have like generated the most clicks to your sales page, or like actually generated the most applications or sales page. I double dog dare you, basically just copy and paste it 90 days later, 120 days later, and just see what happens, because I think you'll be very surprised. After 5 years of scaling newsletters for people, the most important rule I found is that personality plus consistency equals sales. And what I found is that AI copy makes it very easy to stay consistent. However, it kind of takes the soul out of it. And what I found is that like neglecting the personality is what kills sales. Like, if you think about a fiction book, how many fiction books do you really remember? I still remember To Kill a Mockingbird when I was 16 years old in high school English. Fiction books, like they stick in your mind because it's a story. Non-fiction books, I still can't remember like half of what's on my bookshelf. However, sharing stories, being vulnerable, sharing your quirks, that stuff gets remembered. So let me show you how like playing the drums, being in a band, or going to magic coaching has helped my clients made like serious good money from their newsletter. So before, you can see here that their emails are like pretty cut and dry. Like here's the information. It's like quite logical. It's pretty common knowledge that we buy with emotion and then justify with logic later. So to access the emotion, to make a likable character, I would reveal stuff about my clients. For my client Troy, he absolutely loved drums. He loved like 80s music. When we were making reply emails, people brought up references to like lyrics and songs that he mentioned. And sure enough, every single time we ran a promotion, it popped because people just loved Troy. So when you combine personality with consistent publishing, that's how you create consistent sales with your newsletter. And it's what separates your newsletter from everyone else in your niche, because you are uniquely special. You're special. But making a newsletter fun and profitable can be really challenging if you don't have a plan. That's why this video is incomplete unless you watch this video here where I show you how I take an inactive newsletter from 0 sales to 100K in 60 days.